Six podium finishes, two national records, these in an 87-day run that marked a comeback after an Olympic gold last year. If ever there was a well-deserved Switzerland holiday trip, it would be this. Hello and welcome to the Express Sports Podcast. This is Game Time. I am Rahul Pandey, and today on the pod, we are going to talk about perhaps the biggest Indian sports person at the moment, the sensation that is Neeraj Chopra, all of 24 years old, enjoying a trip in the Swiss Alps at the moment and giving us a few hundred reasons to talk about him on a 30-minute podcast midweek. And so we will. We'll talk about the 2022 javelin season for Neeraj that marked his comeback at the Pawanumi Games earlier this summer, all the way to the Diamond League final that he recently won, how he did that, as in the ingredients of his comeback and training in the build-up to this season, his characteristic traits as an athlete and as a person that make him so special, and a little bit more. Who knows, we may even end up breaking down his holiday content on Instagram. And now I'm going to finally introduce the two gents who have joined me to talk about all the above. Two journalists who have covered the trajectory that has been Neeraj's career so far, written a lot about it and spoken about it as well on this pod before. My co-host Mihir Vasavda and our special guest today, Nihal Koshie. First and foremost, gents, the most important question which I have in the lineup, and I think this is perhaps the most important thing that we can discuss about Neeraj Chopra right now. What's been, and I'm going to take a little bit of a dramatic pause here, your favorite bit from the Neeraj Chopra Switzerland trip content on his Instagram account? Nihal, would you like to do the honors?
Frankly, I have no favorite moment here. I'm not a great social media fan. So, sorry to start with this dabbler. I saw some pictures of him there playing in the snow. My fear was I hope he doesn't get injured because he was going on those small mini skis. You see, I don't know, it's not a ski. I think it looks more like a scooter, like a snow scooter maybe. And the first thing which came to my mind was I hope he doesn't get injured because we know what happens when sports people usually try different things they usually don't do. But yeah, knowing Chopra, I think he would have been careful. But still, yeah. So social media, that is the only thing when I saw him skiing on the slow and turned sideways, I was just hoping he doesn't injure himself in any way. And thankfully he hasn't.
Basically, you were just wondering and hoping that he doesn't do a Ravindra Jadeja if reports are to be believed, Nyan.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. The thing is, it's nice to see him chill after a great season and he deserves it, no doubt.
Definitely. And I think a producer in the background has just written this, which is very fatherly of Nihal to say this. But I think it's great right now to just assess what's happened in the last 1 year. Almost this time last year, he had won that Olympic gold in Tokyo. And after that, there was a bit of a pause. This comeback that we are going to talk about, 6 podium finishes, as we mentioned before, surpassed his own best throw. Even though he couldn't feature at the Commonwealth Games, this was a superb first year after Tokyo 2021 for him, right? The reception that he got after that gold medal and his schedule afterwards that involved commercial commitments, his health took a hit, and there was so much talk and anticipation around his comeback. Was this run that followed something that you had expected, or did it surpass your expectations?
Last year after the Tokyo Olympics, he had a big break because of the felicitation functions in India. He didn't have an option to because everybody wanted to felicitate him. Yeah, so he lost a couple of months, 2-3 months, because it's very crucial for these athletes not to lose too much time. And he's lost about 3-4 months, like in the build up to the season. Actually, everybody was wondering, like, how would he do? Did he have enough time? And yeah, it was a race against time, but that is the thing about Neeraj Chopra. He even with a shortened season, he managed to do so well. So he managed to break the national record twice, throw 89 plus meter throws. So I wouldn't say it was unexpected, but we have sort of come to expect this from Neeraj Chopra, like against the odds. He probably is an athlete who knows his body very well, and he's been able to manage that well. So all in all, it was a great season for him. A silver at the World Championship and also being the Diamond League champion at the end of the season. So it was quite a long season for him, but he's done well, yeah.
You mentioned Diamond League here. The Diamond League final, especially the gold medal over there. What's the significance of that? Kitna bada hai wo achievement? Of course, no Indian has done that earlier. But if we were to put it in overall picture, he has the Olympic gold, he has the World Championship silver. What is so special about Diamond League that it ranks up there with one of the important medals that he has won?
Yeah, for starters, the Diamond League was something which Neeraj Chopra had. He wanted to tick that box, so that was important. And Diamond League is a series of events held in 12 cities where you compete over a long period of time. So, for example, javelin wasn't there in all the 12. Javelin was there only in 4, if I recall right. But still, Diamond League rewards the most consistent athlete because you need to get the maximum number of points in these events, and then the top 6 with the most number of points qualifies for the final. So you need to be consistent and you compete against the best in the world. It's not like the World Championships or the Olympics where you throw on that day and then you win. You need to throw over maybe 2-3 months and in different cities in different conditions, and then you qualify for the final. It's huge. It's like the world's best athletes are there, and you need to be consistent over a period, throw well, and then also again perform in the big final. So, and Neeraj Chopra finished fourth and seventh earlier, so this was a big achievement for him. The Diamond League. It's after the Olympics and the World Championships. It's the most coveted title in track and field.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy bit about Neeraj that we've come to believe and see over the last 12 months is एक तो उसका यार customary roar. I think that's of course the biggest sure shot sign that his throw has gone well. We've spoken about it in the past also that his first 2-3 throws are probably the decisive throws on most occasions. And yaar, abhi you've given us a perfect lowdown about uska pura saal, everything that he has achieved. But behind the scenes, what's been going on? I mean, there have been injury scares, there has been a long time away from the sport. How does he keep himself fit for big events? How does he go about his training? His coach Klaus has played a big role as well. So, what goes on behind the scenes that makes Neeraj so good?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Coach Klaus. So he has a good team behind him, a small team, but a good team. Team around him is Dr. Klaus and his physio Ishan. Ishan is somebody who's been with him for I think 5 years, and they get along very well, like a small close knit family. And like how he prepared himself is it was quite a challenge. Like I didn't go into the details earlier, but when he started training, I think it was in December, he had put on about 12 to 14 kilos because he couldn't train. He was going for these felicitation functions and eating all these sweets. And it's not something like when an athlete who's training constantly suddenly stops training, you put on weight. So first he had to lose the weight. So losing weight was the easy task. I think if you and me go to the gym and maintain a diet in 2 weeks, we can lose weight. I think so. I'm sure all of you will agree. Yeah. So, but that is not the thing with a champion athlete. The thing is, for a champion athlete, you need to get that athletic fitness. Like Neeraj Chopra himself said, for him to lose weight is easy. In 2 weeks, he can lose weight. Okay, but how do you get fit again? That was the challenge. So when he first started running in Chula Vista, where they were training, he himself was a little taken aback, but by how difficult it was just to run a couple of laps around the stadium. Then they slowly picked up. He cut out all sugar from his diet, even only like something which came from a fruit maybe, but even in his drinks there was no sugar. All sorts of sugar he cut down. He slowly started weight training, and then he slowly became fitter. Then they slowly started throwing. Throwing properly took another 2 months, I think. So it was a process, step by step process. And I think Dr. Claus, the physio, and Neeraj himself, they know what works for them and what doesn't. Now, the big thing which has changed for Neeraj is after his surgery in 2019, earlier he would push his body a bit. And I was listening to a podcast he does with which Abhinav Bindra does, which if I recall right, it's called In the Zone. Bindra talks to these sports people. So Chopra was one of them. And Chopra in that podcast says that in 2016 at the Indian Grand Prix, he was not in the medal contention till the last throw, and then he had a bad back. But he put that Volini move, and then he strapped that belt around his back and he threw in great pain, and I think he won a medal or he won the gold. But after the surgery in 2019, Chopra won't do that. If you remember last year in Switzerland, I forget the name of the place, there was an event he was listed to throw in just before the Olympics. But when he reached there, he didn't feel right. He somehow felt that I don't feel good today, my body is not good, maybe there could be an injury. Why take a risk before the Olympics? This is something he said again during his chat with Bindra. So they just pulled out of the event the day before and they went trekking. That's how clever Neeraj Chopra has become and how he listens to his body. Now he doesn't take a risk at all because javelin is a very high risk sport in terms of injuries because it's so much power, strength, flexibility. You need all that. So the good thing about Chopra, he and his team know when to train, what kind of training to do, when to rest, and that is very important. So yeah, so that is one thing they have done well. And the second thing is, yes, it was very difficult. Like now, Neeraj Chopra has spoiled all of us. We all expected, if you remember, till 2 years back, there was no athlete in India where 3 years back, there was no athlete in India where we thought that he'll go for an international meet like a world championship and Olympics and is guaranteed of a medal. Now we are so spoiled that we expect a medal, not only a medal, a gold. That did Chopra after his Diamond League champion. He was saying that he was just general advice for fans that when I won silver, everybody was saying, why not gold? But he was saying that this is track and field. Like there are countries, 200 countries from around the world competing. It's a high level of competition. So I can't win gold all the time. So that's how good he has become.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nihal, you mentioned about his training. An important part of his game has been his technique, which has been put into emphasis by his coach as well, who is a biomechanics expert. Now, he has stressed on how important it is for the body to bend like a bow and then expand with the explosive power. For people who watch javelin, and I'm sure many of us watched the javelin final in Olympics for the first time last year. It's a sport that can be associated to the power, but in his game, power comes later and technique comes first. How would you want to put that in perspective?
Yeah, Chopra's coach, Klaus, is a biomechanics expert. So, biomechanics plays a huge role in most sports and in javelin. So, the thing with Chopra is one of his strengths is his elasticity of the body plus his technique. So, the coach says, see, there are bigger throwers, there are stronger throwers, but the thing with Chopra is he's got a consistent base when it comes to technique, and that is very important in javelin. So, like now we see him throwing between 86 and 88 or 89 most of the time, means his technique is he's been able to repeat that technique constantly in event after event, round after round. So that's a good thing. And Chopra, like we said, is not a power thrower. Somebody like Johannes Vetter, who's now injured and who was throwing 90 meters for fun last season, he's a power thrower. Most of these Germans tend to be power throwers. But Chopra is not. He relies on technique, he relies on flexibility, he relies on elasticity. And the good thing now is that he's got a technique which he can repeat. So that works for him. And there are lesser chances of injury. I'm saying not that he won't get injured or anything like that, God forbid, but yeah, there are lesser chances of him getting injured if he sticks to his technique and his technique is good.
It's quite fascinating, But another thing that was fascinating to me, which Neeraj talked about after his previous win, which was in the Diamond League final, a number which we associate with him too often these days, 90. The 90 mark has been associated with him for almost the entirety of the season, right? He did talk about it after that Diamond League final, and he said, okay, it's a magical mark for sure, but what do I do if I throw 90-meter and do not win? Then even 90-meter will feel less, and maybe I would want to throw 93. The main thing is to win gold, irrespective of the distance. There's also this stat, which I think we included in one of our stories, which we did during the World Championships, that since 2000, only 7 of the 48 men's javelin medalists at the Olympics and Worlds have thrown over 90-meter. But going forward, now that he has set such high standards for himself, and now that we have seen names such as Anderson Peters, Arshad Nadeem throw it at big events recently, how crucial will it be for Neeraj Chopra to take his game forward? Now, it's almost like he's in touching distance of that mark, and it can happen given the way you've talked about his training, but how crucial it is for him to take that step up.
Yeah, it can get crucial because, see, for the simple reason that we saw at the World Championships, there was Anderson Peters who had throws over 90 meters. Okay, his first throw was over 90, his last throw was over 90, and Chopra finished second. Chopra made a comeback. He was not in the medals, running for the medals initially, but he finished second. But the fact that there is someone like Anderson Peters who's now recovering from injury after a brawl on a boat, but when he comes back, his one throw is going to throw 90. And let's not forget, Johannes Vetter has been injured. But if he recovers, which he will, and he comes back and he starts throwing 90 meters, then there's another 90-meter thrower. Arshad Nadeem has thrown 90. And there's Vetters, another German, Thomas Roller, who is a 90-meter thrower. He's also a little like Chopra, more about technique and flexibility and elasticity. So yes, if all these top throwers are fit, like Peters, Vetter, Roller, Nadeem, and a couple of others are fit, then you could suddenly see the quality of, I mean, the standard of the javelin final maybe going to, there'll be 4 or 5 people who are throwing 90 plus. So then that will be the key for, if all of these guys are fit and they start throwing 90 meters, then Chopra will have to step it up if he wants to win gold or even maybe even finish in the medal tally. Next year's the Asian Games, so in that Chopra may not have to throw 90, but at the World Championships, if all these people are fit, next year's World Championships, 90 meters could be something he would want to achieve. That said, like Chopra said, yeah, what's the point if I can throw, like, say, 89 and then win a medal? Nothing like it. I don't have to throw 90. And that's what Chopra, that's the thing about Chopra. See, irrespective of the conditions, whether there's wind, whether it's rained a little, he's been able to conquer all these conditions, be mentally very strong. And see, remember, everybody's throwing the same condition. He's been able to better most of his opponents that day. He's in the right mind space and he's got that knack of doing what it takes on that particular day to win a medal. That is what is needed at the end of the day. See, you can have Vetter, Anderson, Peters, Roller, everybody there, and Chopra there, but Chopra may be the one who throws 89 and the rest can't throw that day, So it depends on that day how you perform and the number of factors, the conditions, how your body feels. Chopra somehow has got that knack that when the competition starts, he knows what to do to win on that day. Yeah, but that said, he would also like to be a consistent 90-meter thrower, like 90, 92, in that range, because the competition could just step up, like taking nothing away from Chopra. But if Vetter was there, maybe it would have been much harder for him. But fully fit Vetter coming back next year and competing against Chopra will be something everybody would like to see. And even Peters, if Anderson Peters, if he's fully fit, Thomas Roller, if he makes a comeback, the competition will be good. So he'll have to, yeah, at some point he may have to step up to 90 and become a consistent 90-meter thrower.
I agree, Nihal, in that part because especially when we look at, say, Arshad Nadeem, he is effortless. We saw that at Commonwealth Games. जिसका जो 90 मीटर वाला throw था, I mean, if he puts even half more effort than what he did for that throw, he can go to mid 90s as well, I guess, because काफी monstrous उसका throw था, effort and strength that he has. And like you mentioned, Vetter already has thrown 97, is it? His best. So again, big monster throws. And again, the other thing that you mentioned, that he has spoiled us, right? Neeraj has spoiled us. So whatever he does next season onwards, his benchmark will be, I don't know how he'll better the Olympic gold, but perhaps to repeat that, to better the World Championship silver, to perhaps have more finishes in the top 3 at Diamond League. So the benchmark that he's setting for himself is pretty high. How is he handling that? He comes across as kafi calm and sorted in press interactions in other occasions where he's not competing. But in the inner circle, do they talk a lot about all these factors?
See, Chopra, the thing about Chopra is the other day I asked him during a media interaction, how do you get into the zone? So that is something athletes, even the best of athletes, struggle to get into that zone, whether it's cricketers, tennis players, even footballers, like to be in that zone where you can perform at your best. But for Chopra, he said he doesn't have to do anything much. He just gets into the zone when he competes. So that is something, maybe it's God given or maybe he's worked on it over the years. And he's a very mature chap for somebody who's just 24. The greatest thing is that he knows his body well and he knows that he does the hard work. For him, he's able to come out and perform on that day because he knows he's already done the hard work. He knows his body well. He trusts his coach. He trusts his physio. He trusts his training methods. And when there's so much of trust and there's so much of confidence, I think it's just getting into the zone just happens automatically. And otherwise, he's very grounded. He's very respectful to his opponents. Like you would have noticed, even Vetter, when Vetter didn't qualify for the final, there was no big brag from Chopra. There was no boast. He was just feeling bad for Vetter because he knows that here was a fine throw and he didn't do well. He was feeling bad. Even Arshad Nadeem, there's anything related to Pakistan, there's always this, the general perception is that Pakistani hai, to then like enemy hai. But no, not at all. Not with Chopra at all. He doesn't buy into that narrative at all. Arshad Nadeem also is very encouraging of him. Both of them had a cordial relationship. So Chopra that way is very grounded, very mature, and he doesn't let success go to his head. At least so far he hasn't, and I don't think he will. Because he's come up the hard way. Like just the other day, somebody asked him, what was it that you did initially which is helping you now? So he came up with a very simple answer. Like when he started off, he would walk to the bus stop, take a bus. Sometimes the bus wouldn't come. He would walk, go to a stadium where the equipment was not great. There were probably a couple of javelins. So from that, he also tells people never complain about you don't have facilities, make the best of them. So he's that way very grounded and he has not changed. In a way, I would say he's still a simpleton. If you had met Neeraj Chopra in 2016 and you meet him now, other than the fact that he talks a lot more confidently, like he's still the same.
Right. And one thing that I also found very interesting about Neeraj, and perhaps it explains why he's so consistent, is his game IQ, right? I mean, you mentioned his ability to adapt to different conditions. I think he's also able to do that because he understands his sport so well. He understands why javelin behaves in a particular way in a particular situation so well that Klaus just needs to tell him once and he's able to execute it perfectly. Like, for example, I'll go back to the Tokyo Olympics example where the conditions were such that in the warm-up throw, for example, when Neeraj threw it, gave it a high flight, the javelin was wobbling a bit because of the conditions. And Klaus just noticed that. He told Neeraj to keep the flight a little flat. Neeraj understood, and within that 10-15 seconds, the conversations, he was able to adapt. He brought his javelin ka flight a little lower, while others were really struggling to get that under control. Neeraj did that, and we saw the result. So his game IQ is pretty solid as well, which is, I won't say rare, but you don't find that very common in Indian athletes.
True. And he also asks a lot of questions. If you talk to Ishan and Klaus, like if you tell Neeraj you do this, he'll do it, but then he'll ask you immediately, why did I do this? Why is it helping me? Or if you tell him to do another kind of exercise, he may say that, okay, why do you want me to do this? Because I'm comfortable doing that. He is, I can say, a thinking athlete, like we say, thinking cricketer. He doesn't follow anything blindly. He wants to know why. He wants to know how it'll help him. He wants to know. He asks questions. So that's a good thing.
Incredible. Just an incredible athlete and just a treat to watch. So I guess we've created a lot of demand for anyone who listens to this pod to just go back and watch all the Neeraj Chopra matches that have taken place this season, probably the highlights of the old Asian finals, the Olympics final, and so on and so forth. I think I'm going to do it. So thank you so much, gents, for this. It's been fun. And thank you so much to all our listeners for tuning in. We'll be back next week, and you know the drill. You can immediately finish this pod and go on to the Indian Express website to know all that's happening in the world of sports, and come back to this pod next week and see what we have for you in the offering. Thank you so much.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Abhishek Kumar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.